Blood oak. The moon hung low over the dense forest, its pale light barely piercing the tangled canopy of gnarled branches. Deep within the ancient woodland stood the blood oak, its bark as dark as dried blood, its roots twisting like skeletal fingers through the earth. Legends whispered of its cursed origins, of the souls it had consumed, and of the horrors that had taken place beneath its sprawling limbs. A storm brewed on the horizon as Ezra Blackwood trudged through the undergrowth, his lantern casting a trembling glow against the night. He had spent his life studying the occult, seeking out the truths buried beneath folklore and myth. The blood oak was his latest obsession. He had read every old tome, spoken to every aging villager, and scoured every forgotten map. All had led him here. The wind howled through the trees as he reached the clearing. There it stood, massive and foreboding, the air around it thick with an unnatural stillness. A single red leaf drifted from its crown, settling at Ezra's feet. He bent down, picking it up between trembling fingers. It was warm. A distant scream tore through the night. Ezra's breath hitched. He turned, scanning the darkness beyond the trees, his heart hammering. Then, silence, only the rustling leaves and the creak of the ancient oak. He pressed on, reaching into his satchel for a journal, flipping through pages filled with sketches and notes. The story spoke of sacrifices, of the tree drinking blood, of those who dared trespass vanishing without a trace. He knelt at the base of the tree, brushing away damp leaves to reveal something half buried in the soil. Bones. Human bones. A gust of wind sent a shudder through the branches. Ezra staggered back as a shadow unfurled from the trunk, stretching like an ink stain against the night. It had formed a twisted, faceless thing with hollow eyes that burned like embers. It whispered his name. Ezra turned to run, but the roots moved, coiling around his ankles like living serpents. He fell hard, his lantern shattering, plunging him into darkness. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of anguished voices. Hands, cold and spectral, grasped at his skin, pulling him toward the tree's hungry embrace. A sharp pain bloomed in his chest as the tree's roots tightened. His vision blurred, his breath came in ragged gasps. He tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the night. And then, silence. The blood oak stood unmoving, its bark glistening wet under the moonlight. The forest exhaled, and the wind carried a single red leaf into the darkness. Dawn broke with a golden glow that barely reached the depths of the forest. The villagers, wary of the cursed woodland, never ventured too far beyond their borders. But today, drawn by an unnatural hush, an old woman named Agnes crossed the threshold of the trees. She clutched a bundle of sage, muttering prayers under her breath. She had warned Ezra before he left, told him not to seek what did not wish to be found. She knew the stories all too well. When she reached the clearing, her heart clenched. The blood oak stood as it always had, yet something had changed. The air was heavier, the ground darker, and at the base of the tree, something new had grown, a gnarled root, thick and knotted, its surface bearing the unmistakable impression of a human face. Ezra's face. Agnes gasped, taking a step back. The forest whispered around her, voices tangled in the wind. She did not linger, clutching her rosary. She turned and fled, knowing the blood oak had claimed another soul. And it would not be its last. As the years passed, the blood oak continued to claim those who ventured too close, its roots growing thicker, its branches stretching wider, as if feeding on the lives it devoured. The villagers spoke of Ezra in hushed tones, his story becoming another cautionary tale meant to keep curious souls at bay. But curiosity, as always, proved to be stronger than fear. Decades later, a young scholar named Julian Harker arrived in the village, drawn by the same whispers that had lured Ezra before him. The villagers begged him to leave well enough alone, to ignore the cursed tree, but Julian was relentless in his pursuit of knowledge. He believed in reason, in science, not in the superstitions of old. One night, armed with modern tools and recording devices, he set off toward the blood oak, determined to unravel its mystery. He left at dusk, confident in his abilities, convinced that the stories were just myths exaggerated by fear. He did not return. By morning, the villagers discovered his belongings scattered in the clearing, his notebook open to a final, frantic entry. The tree knows I am here. It whispers my name. The ground moves beneath me. Something is coming. I must. The sentence trailed off into a jagged line, the page stained with something dark. Julian was gone, his fate the same as Ezra's before him. The blood oak remained, its presence eternal, a grim reminder of the price of arrogance. Moral. Some truths are not meant to be unearthed. Curiosity without caution leads to destruction. There are forces in the world that do not seek to be understood. And those who defy their warnings often pay the ultimate price. Wisdom lies not only in seeking knowledge but in knowing when to let the unknown remain undisturbed.